Tuesday evening, I attended the retirement program celebration dinner for Mark Terrell, a beautiful, elegant venue in the Hippodrome, or right next door to the Hippodrome, relatively new. I'm not sure if this was the first function in it, but certainly one of the first functions. Probably most of you know who Mark Terrell is. Mark's been the president of the Associated, at this point really going on 2 decades, and it's been just a wonderful, wise, caring, determined leader in Baltimore's Jewish community throughout the entire time that he's been here. So, Yasher Koach, he goes off to a well-deserved retirement, whatever that next chapter might be, and I'm sure there will be a next chapter. Mark will stay busy if I know him. In the course of remarks that were made during the program, part of the evening, one point the person speaking alluded to what I would call kind of classic trope in Jewish communal life, namely that it isn't always the easiest thing to work for Jews, not always the easiest thing to work for Jews, Shelley, right? And then the joke that's been told 1,000,000 times, if not more, 1,000,000 times, but it still gets a chuckle every time. Why is it hard to work for Jews? Because when you have 2 Jews, you have 3 opinions. 2 Jews, 3 opinions. Maybe 4 opinions from 2 Jews. I don't know, whatever it is. So last night, if you were at services, I don't know where Rabbi Zaslow's gone off to, but if you were at services last night, you know that Rabbi Zaslow spoke about the kvetchy side of the Jewish community, We all have a little bit of kvetch inside of us. And it is true that in this week's Torah portion, which is Baha'alotcha, we find the Israelites at their kvetchiest, if you'll excuse the phrase, complaining about, really just about everything that there is to complain about. They're complaining about the food, they're complaining about the accommodations, they're complaining about the heat, they're complaining about the schlepping around, just complaint after complaint after complaint. Poor Moses, the position that he's in, and he has to not only listen to it all, but try to figure out a way kind of how to navigate it. There is some truth to it. Rabbi Zaslow last night was talking about complaints that we get in terms of the Kiddush, and there are complaints that we get about the Kiddush. I personally, however, will always remember one particular Shabbat. It was at the Kiddush, and 3 congregants came up to me to tell me that the toilet paper in the bathroom was the wrong kind of toilet paper. That's actually true. But there's another side of kvetchy. There is another side of kvetchy, I would call kind of the other side of the coin. And I think the two are connected. When you have one, probably you're going to have the other, and vice versa. And another feature of the Jewish people and Jewish community is stubbornness or obstinacy. Or as the Torah puts it, the Israelites are am kashay oref, means a stiff-necked people, And this idea of am kashay oref, a stiff-necked people, originally, first time we see it, appears in the book of Exodus. And in Exodus, comes up over and over and over again. Whenever the Israelites do something wrong, they're complaining against God, or they're complaining against Moses, like we see in this week's Torah portion, where they wish they were back in Egypt instead of wandering in the wilderness. Often, those moments, the Torah will describe the people as am kshe oref, stiff-necked, a stiff-necked people. In other words, Jews are stubborn, strong-willed, a bit cantankerous sometimes, and kvetchy also. Argumentative, not easily satisfied, critical, and always seem to find the one thing that isn't right instead of focusing on the 10 things that are right. So you may know someone like that, I don't know, in your own life, but so it is picked up by the tradition and often used as a description of the Jewish people, that idea of am kshe oref, stiff-necked people, when we are at our worst. You might be familiar with the phrase already because it appears over and over again in the liturgy in the Machzor. So the liturgy that we encounter on the High Holy Days, you see the phrase used again and again. So the Israelites were am kshe oref, stiff-necked, difficult people, and then later rabbinic literature and the Machzor would seem to suggest that we also, the present-day Jews, are also stiff-necked and stubborn, et cetera, et cetera. There's that kind of sense of continuity. And for those of us who work in the Jewish professional world, and we go to meetings all the time, and et cetera, we might agree. We might agree that sometimes that's the character that we find in the course of an interaction, a meeting, or whatever it might be, as well as the joke about two Jews and three opinions. The other classic joke, which was not told at Mark's retirement, is, you all know this one as well, that there's the Jew stranded on the desert island, and he builds two shuls, right? The one that he goes to and the one he would never set foot in, right? But what I want to suggest this morning is that there is actually something positive about being a stiff-necked people. Something positive, and maybe even something that is necessary. Something that is necessary. So that phrase, a stiff-necked people, it first comes up in the Torah portion, ki tisa. Again, that's back in Exodus. In that Torah portion, you find the narrative of the golden calf, the sin of the golden calf. And there's a fascinating back and forth there between Moses and God after the sin is committed. And there are a number of these interactions between God and Moses in the Torah. God is telling Moses how angry God is, and God is prepared to destroy the people. And Moses is trying to defend the people and explain to God why God should not destroy the people and why God should find a way to sort of repair the breach in the relationship. And God says to Moses, you're going to have to create 2 new tablets, because remember, Moses shatters the first tablet, so they're gone. And Moses is trying to figure out a way to get God to agree, not only to grant the new tablets, but to get God to agree to remain a continual and constant presence, God's presence in the camp, not just the tablets, but God's self to be in the camp. And Moses says this, if I have found favor with you, God, then please go in our midst, ki am kashe oref, who? Because this is a stiff-necked people. So Moses says, God, it's because we're stiff-necked that you, God, should care about us. It's because we're stiff-necked. And what I want to suggest this morning is that there is something positive about having those qualities, maybe even necessary again, about being a stiff-necked people. That if we hadn't been a stiff-necked people all of these years, we wouldn't be where we are today, and possibly we wouldn't even exist as a people at all anymore. In a way, it is being stiff-necked that has enabled us to survive and has given us the strength and the courage over the years to speak out and to say things that other people might not want to say, or to do things that other people don't want done. Because we're stiff-necked, we can do it. I mean, think of Moses for a moment, just Moses himself. What enabled him to stand up for an Israelite slave that was being beaten, or imagine walking into Pharaoh's throne room. Moses, he's like a poor schlepper guy, and he walks in, he says to the Pharaoh, hey, let my people go. And what gave him the gumption to do that, the chutzpah to do that? Stiff neck. Or that matter, to say to the Israelites, Moses, I'm going to take all of you out of Egypt. What? Yeah, I'm going to take all of you out of Egypt. You have to have some backbone to say that and to make that promise. Think of David, a young David, walking out by himself into a field and seeing a huge Goliath in front of him and saying to himself, I can defeat that Goliath, and he does it. Or what about Esther walking into the throne room of King Ahasuerus, knowing that she might die, but walking in and waiting for the king to raise his scepter and to welcome her and to give her the opportunity to save the Jewish people? Or what about Mordecai refusing to bow to Haman? Right? It's one after another after another. In modern times, Theodore Herzl schlepping around all over the world to insist that there should be a Jewish state, not only that there should be a Jewish state, but that should be located in the land of Israel where it is today. What if he hadn't done it? What if he didn't have the stiff neck to put up with all the mishigas he had to put up with? He had it, he did it. There is a state of Israel. We might easily say if we were not a stiff-necked people, the Jewish people might not be where we are today. Jewish history could be very different. And we might even wonder if there would be anyone around to remember the Exodus from Egypt or to gather together in a beautiful sanctuary and celebrate a bar mitzvah and 2 baby namings. You know, it's always the truth that the old jokes still resonate because there's a kernel of truth there. We hear it say, yeah, you know, it's funny, but yeah, okay, 2 Jews, 3 opinions, whatever. We are stiff-necked, challenging, can be challenging, stubborn, yep, stubborn, opinionated and argumentative, yep, sometimes that as well, but determined, and with the strength of will that has carried us all the way since the time of Moses to the present day, should continue to sustain us for many generations to come. Shabbat Shalom.